Welcome to a journey through the ages, tracing the path of one of the most enigmatic and fearsome figures in arcane lore, Vecna, the Maimed Lord, whose very name conjures images of dark magic and eternal deceit. This tale, woven from the threads of history and horror, charts the rise of a mere mortal boy into a figure of divine malevolence, whose impact reverberates through the annals of time. Born in a land shrouded by the mists of mystery and governed by the powers both dread and profound, Vecna's story begins in the humblest of origins, destined for infamy. Through dark rituals and darker ambitions, he transformed into something beyond death, a lich, an emperor of the damned, and eventually a god. Chapter 1: The Origins of the Maimed Lord. In the distant lands of Earth, under a sky cloaked by the perpetual twilight of a solar eclipse, a child was born. This was no ordinary child, but one marked by omens and prophecy. His mother, a feared witch known as Mazel, recognized the signs of destiny woven into the fabric of his being. She named him Vecna, a name that would one day be spoken with both reverence and terror. Vecna's early life was steeped in arcane mysteries. The village of his birth lay near the ruins of an ancient, forgotten empire, a place teeming with residual magic and dark secrets. His mother, attuned to the arcane, was his first mentor. She taught him that knowledge was power, and that all power came at a price. Through her, Vecna learned to listen to the whispers of the past, drawing lessons from the lore buried beneath his feet. As Vecna grew, so did his abilities. His intellect and cunning set him apart from other children. He spent his days exploring the ruins, where he uncovered arcane artifacts and ancient tomes, each a puzzle piece in the vast landscape of magical knowledge. His nights were filled with clandestine studies, practicing spells that bent and warped the natural order. Mazel's guidance was strict and often harsh, but always imbued with a purpose: to prepare Vecna for a destiny greater than any mortal could envision. She introduced him to the darker side of magic, including necromancy, which fascinated Vecna with its promise of overcoming death and decay. His mastery over these forbidden arts grew, drawing uneasy murmurs from those who dwelled near. On his 16th birthday, a traveling seer visited their village. Upon seeing Vecna, the seer went pale and spoke of a prophecy that foretold the rise of a dark lord who would master death and rule over all. While the villagers whispered in fear, Vecna's heart filled with a dark ambition. His path was clear. He would not merely bend the world to his will, he would reshape it entirely. As Vecna stood amidst the ancient ruins on the eve of his decision, the stars aligned in a rare celestial pattern, illuminating a hidden chamber. Inside, he found the first of many keys to his future, an ancient and powerful grimoire that whispered to him of secrets beyond mortal ken. With the grimoire in hand, Vecna made a vow. He would transcend his human limits, even if it meant walking a path shrouded in shadows and blood. Chapter 2: The Forbidden Arts. As Vecna delved deeper into the arcane, his pursuits led him far from the familiar ruins of his youth to the shadowed corners of Earth. His thirst for knowledge knew no bounds, and his quest for arcane mastery brought him into contact with other practitioners of the dark arts. From each he gleaned secrets, always leaving behind a trail of whispers and unease. It was during these wandering years that Vecna encountered a sect of ancient and secretive sorcerers known as the Cabal of Shadows. This group practiced magic that blurred the lines between life and death, manipulating souls with ease that Vecna had never witnessed. The Cabal, recognizing his potential and ambition, offered him membership in exchange for a terrible pact. Vecna accepted, sacrificing part of his humanity to gain access to forbidden knowledge that had been lost to time. With the pact sealed, Vecna's abilities in necromancy soared. He learned to summon and command spirits from the ether, and to converse with the dead as easily as with the living. His reputation grew, not just as a master of death, but as one who defied it. Villages whispered of a dark figure that could bend the will of the deceased, and many a night, families mourned anew as graves lay empty by dawn. Vecna's ultimate aim was to transcend the cycle of life and death entirely. Through the Cabal's ancient texts, he discovered a process of creating a phylactery, a vessel to house his soul, granting him immortality. This process required unspeakable sacrifices and a total surrender to the dark arts. In the dead of night, under a new moon, Vecna performed the ritual that would end his mortality. His body withered, his flesh decayed, but his spirit bound itself to the phylactery, rebirthing him as a lich. As a lich, Vecna's presence became a blight upon the land. His former humanity was now a distant echo. He retreated to a fortress of his own design, hidden within the darkest forest of Earth. This fortress, built from the bones of his enemies and powered by the souls of the damned, became a center of his operations and a sanctuary for his studies. Here, Vecna continued to expand his knowledge, becoming a figure of nightmare and the stories told to frighten children into obedience. During his isolation, Vecna penned a tome that would become infamous, the Tome of the Stilled Tongue. This book, written in his own blood, bound in the flesh of his foes, contained spells of such potency that merely reading them could drive one mad. It also held the secrets to manipulating and controlling the dead, ensuring that Vecna's command over necromancy was unrivaled. With each forbidden spell mastered, each soul bent to his will, Vecna moved further from any semblance of the boy who once roamed the ancient ruins in search of understanding. Chapter 3: The Ascension to Lichdom. In the heart of a dark forest, shrouded by perpetual mist and guarded by creatures of nightmare, stood Vecna's citadel, his fortress of power. Built from obsidian and the bones of those who opposed him, it was here that Vecna solidified his transformation into a being beyond mortality. His citadel became a beacon of dark magic, attracting creatures and sorcerers with desires as dark as Vecna's own heart. Within the walls of his citadel, Vecna convened a gathering of the most powerful necromancers and dark wizards of the age. This conclave was a melting of minds twisted by ambition and cruelty, each contributing their darkest spells and forbidden knowledge to Vecna's ever-expanding grimoire. Under Vecna's command, the conclave undertook the grand project of raising an undead army. Necromancers combined their powers under Vecna's guidance, invoking dark rites that spanned days and nights, culminating in the earth itself trembling as legions of undead rose from their graves. These undead were not mindless zombies, but retained fragments of their past skills and intelligence, all bound to Vecna's iron will. With an army at his command and a fortress that was impregnable, Vecna began expanding his territory. His undead legions marched across the land, conquering village after village, kingdom after kingdom. Those who resisted were slain and raised again to serve his army. Those who submitted were spared death but lived under the shadow of his tyranny. Vecna established a harsh regime, placing necromancers and undead lieutenants as rulers over the conquered territories. These lieutenants maintained order and quelled any sign of rebellion through fear and force. Vecna's rule was not just through physical might, but also through psychological terror. His eye, now a powerful artifact, served as his watchful presence, reminding all of his omnipotence and omnipresence. At the height of his power, Vecna was no longer merely a lich or a ruler. He was a force of nature, a deity in his own right. His name was invoked both in curses and in worship, and his influence extended beyond the physical realm into the domains of the gods. His pursuit of godhood, once a distant dream, now seemed an inevitable reality. Chapter 4: The Rise of an Empire. With the might of his undead armies and the dread power of his dark magic, Vecna began to shape an empire unlike any before. From his citadel of shadows, he sent forth his legions, not merely to conquer, but to integrate and institutionalize his rule across vast stretches of land. His empire, built on the bones of the fallen and the fear of the living, was a manifestation of his unyielding will to dominate and reshape the world in his dark image. Vecna proved to be a master strategist, using both military might and arcane prowess to subdue his enemies. He understood the importance of both fear and loyalty. Thus, he established a complex system of governance. This system was enforced by his necromancers and undead lieutenants who served as governors and enforcers of his harsh laws. He kept the populace in check through a combination of fear, surveillance, and occasional displays of dark miracles, attributed to Vecna's divine aspect. Under Vecna's rule, necromancy flourished as a formal discipline. Academies of the dark arts were established, where scholars of the macabre could study and experiment under the protection of Vecna's laws. These institutions attracted many who sought power over death, further cementing Vecna's status as a god of necromancy. The curriculum was not only about mastering death, but also about understanding the essence of life, thereby controlling both. As the empire expanded, the culture within its borders began to shift. Old beliefs and religions were suppressed or twisted to serve Vecna's narrative. The cult of Vecna, now an official state religion, permeated every level of society. Temples dedicated to Vecna rose, grim and majestic, where priests conducted ceremonies that blurred the lines between death and devotion, sacrifice and salvation. Vecna's personal artifacts, the eye and hand of Vecna, became symbols of his absolute power and terror. The eye allowed him to see any betrayal or rebellion before it could gather strength, while the hand was said to wield unspeakable power, capable of obliterating entire battalions or raising fallen enemies to aid his undead ranks. These artifacts, both revered and feared, seen as direct conduits of Vecna's will. Despite the terror, there were pockets of resistance throughout the empire. Secret coalitions of mages and disenfranchised nobles plotted to overthrow Vecna. seeking out ancient magics and alliances with entities as dark and powerful as Vecna himself. These rebellions were small and often brutally suppressed, but they sowed the seed of dissent, indicating that Vecna's grip, though ironclad, was not absolute. At the zenith of his empire, Vecna envisioned a world reshaped entirely by his will. A world where death was but a choice and life could be manipulated at will. His vision was one of eternal rule, a legacy that would endure through the ages, transcending the boundaries of time and death. Chapter 5: The Reign of Terror. With the foundation of his dark empire firmly laid, Vecna shifted from expansion to consolidation, tightening his grip on the lands under his control. His citadel, now a towering beacon of dark magic and tyranny, served as the heart from which his will was imposed upon his subjects. The Reign of Terror was not only a period of oppressive rule, but also one of profound fear and submission under Vecna's watchful eye. Vecna's lieutenants, both living and undead, were tasked with the relentless enforcement of his decrees. The laws were harsh and absolute, designed to crush any semblance of rebellion or dissent. Punishments were brutal and public, serving as a grim reminder of the consequences of opposing Vecna. Necromantic rituals became state ceremonies, where the living could witness the power Vecna wielded over life and death. The cult of Vecna was instrumental during this period, acting not just as religious leaders but also as Vecna's voice amongst the people. They conducted public rituals, sacrifices, indoctrinations to reinforce the divine nature of Vecna's rule. Their influence permeated every aspect of daily life, ensuring that the populace viewed Vecna not just as a ruler, but as a god deserving of devotion and fear. The Eye of Vecna, a symbol of his omnipresence, was feared above all. Vecna utilized this artifact to its fullest, spying into the lives of his subjects, rooting out conspiracies before they could take shape. The Eye also allowed Vecna to cast powerful spells across great distances, striking down his foes with terrifying precision. It was said that the mere mention of rebellion could summon the gaze of the Eye, followed by a swift retribution. Throughout the Empire, structures that embodied Vecna's power and terror rose. Gigantic statues, towers that scraped the sky, and fortresses that sprawled like dark webs across the landscape were constructed. These were not just military or administrative buildings, but symbols of Vecna's unassailable power and eternal reign. Each stone was enchanted, making the structures nearly indestructible and symbols of despair to those that dreamed of freedom. Despite the outward appearances of unyielding control, the Reign of Terror sowed the seeds of its own downfall. Among Vecna's closest lieutenants was Kaz the Bloody-Handed, once his most loyal servant, now harboring ambitions of his own. Kaz, wielding a sword forged by Vecna himself, began to see the potential of power beyond his servitude. Whispers of betrayal began to circulate, fueled by Kaz's growing disillusionment and desire for independence. In the shadows of Vecna's oppressive regime, pockets of resistance began to form more cohesively. Scholars, mages, and disenfranchised nobles shared forbidden knowledge and plotted in secrecy. They sought ancient artifacts and alliances with magical creatures to counter Vecna's necromancy. These resistance cells, though scattered and secretive, laid the groundwork for what would eventually culminate into a significant challenge to Vecna's rule. The Reign of Terror marked the dark apex of Vecna's power, a time when his rule seemed unbreakable and his might limitless. Yet, as history often shows, the greatest empires face the greatest downfalls. The tale of Vecna is no exception. Chapter 6: The Betrayal of Cass. Cass the Bloody-Handed, once a noble warrior, had been transformed under Vecna's tutelage into a figure of dread power and brutal efficiency. As Vecna's right hand, Cass was entrusted with the enforcement of his will, wielding a sword specially forged by Vecna that was imbued with dark magic. This sword, which became known as the Sword of Cass, was a symbol of his authority and a vessel of immense power. Despite his loyalty, Cass began to grow resentful of his subservient position. The more power he wielded, the more he desired freedom from Vecna's shadow. The Sword of Cass, whispering dark thoughts and promises of great power, gradually corrupted Cass's mind. It stirred in him a fierce desire to not just serve, but to rule. His ambitions were fueled further by the factions within the Empire that opposed Vecna's tyranny, who saw in Cass a potential ally, or even a leader. Secret meetings began to take place in the darkest corners of the Empire, where whispers of rebellion could not reach the all-seeing eye of Vecna. Cass, using his position and influence, slowly gathered a following of powerful necromancers, disillusioned soldiers, and oppressed nobles. Together they plotted the downfall of Vecna, created a plan that would see the Arch-Lich dethroned, and Cass ascend as the new ruler. The betrayal reached its climax on a night shrouded in darkness, with a lunar eclipse casting the Empire into unnatural shadow. Using the chaos of the darkened lands as cover, Cass and his conspirators launched a surprise attack on Vecna's citadel. The battle was fierce and catastrophic, with magic and might clashing in a spectacle of power. Cass, leading the charge, faced Vecna in a monumental duel. As the two titanic forces clashed, the very air around them crackled with arcane energy. Vecna, wielding spells of immense destruction, battled against Cass, who was empowered by the cursed sword and his burning ambition. The duel was both a physical and magical confrontation, with each blow causing ripples through the very fabric of reality. In the climactic moment of their battle, Cass managed to land a grievous blow, severing Vecna's hand, the very hand that held dominion over death. The hand, along with the eye of Vecna, was lost in the chaos of the ensuing explosion of arcane energy. This act weakened Vecna significantly, causing his corporeal form to be destroyed, dispersing his essence. The immediate aftermath of the betrayal was chaos. Vecna's citadel lay in ruin, his armies leaderless and confused. Cass, having achieved his coup, found himself unable to consolidate power as easily as he had hoped. The Empire fractured, with various factions vying for control, leading to a period of strife and civil war. Though Vecna was defeated, his legacy persisted. The fragments of his power, his hand and his eye, became objects of immense magical potency, and were sought after by sorcerers and adventurers across the ages. Cass, meanwhile, retreated into myth, his fate a subject of legend and speculation. Chapter 7: The Fall and Fragmentation. With Vecna's physical form destroyed and his artifacts lost in the aftermath of the betrayal, the dark empire he had built began to unravel. Power vacuums emerged as various factions, once united under the fear of Vecna's rule, now contested for dominance. The empire fragmented into warring states, each led by former lieutenants, ambitious necromancers, or opportunistic nobles. The unity forged through terror dissolved into chaos and conflict. The hand and eye of Vecna, severed in the climactic duel with Cass, became objects of legend and power. These artifacts, imbued with a portion of Vecna's immense necrotic energy, were sought by many who wished to wield their power or prevent their misuse. The search for these relics led to numerous quests, battles, and stories that wove their way into the fabric of the world's lore. In the power vacuum that was left by Vecna's fall, new leaders and new threats emerged. Some sought to restore order and return to less malevolent forms of governance, while others aimed to emulate or even surpass Vecna's tyranny. Among these were the remnants of the cult of Vecna, who persisted in secret, keeping the Dark Lord's teachings and rituals active, hoping for his eventual return. Despite the Empire's fall, the practices of necromancy that Vecna had popularized remained deeply entrenched in many regions. These dark arts continued to be studied, feared, and reviled in various parts of the world. The academic institutions that Vecna had established, though often destroyed or repurposed, left behind a legacy of dark knowledge that would occasionally resurface in later ages. Vecna's spirit, though dispersed, was not destroyed. The curse of his will lingered, manifesting in places where his power had been strongest. These cursed sites became focal points of dark rituals, hauntings, and the occasional emergence of undead phenomena, keeping the fear of Vecna alive in the hearts of the people. As decades turned into centuries, the reality of Vecna's reign turned into myth. The tale of his terror, the betrayal by Cass, and the potent artifacts became part of storytelling and folklore. However, for those who delved deep into arcane study, or those who were touched by the remnants of his power, Vecna was a very real influence, a shadow looming in the dark corners of magical lore. Historians, scholars of the arcane, and adventurers continued to be drawn to the study of Vecna's era. Artifacts from his reign, texts written in the tome of the stilled tongue, and the ruins of the once great citadel offered rich fields of study and exploration. These remnants served as grim reminders of the past and as warnings of the dangers inherent in the pursuits of unchecked power. Chapter 8: The Cult of Vecna. Even as the remnants of Vecna's empire lay scattered and his physical form destroyed, the cult of Vecna persisted, driven underground by the new powers that rose from the empire's ashes. These devout followers, comprising of necromancers, outcasts, and those seduced by the promise of forbidden knowledge, kept the Dark Lord's teachings and ambitions alive. They operated in the shadows, their activities shrouded in secrecy and their gatherings hidden from prying eyes. The central tenets of the cult was a belief in Vecna's eventual resurrection and a return to power. They held that Vecna, as a being who transcended death, could never truly be destroyed. The cult's rituals and ceremonies often involved attempting to communicate with what they believed to be the lingering spirit of Vecna, seeking his guidance and blessings to bring about his return. A significant part of the cult's activities centered around locating the lost artifacts of Vecna, primarily the eye, and the hand. They believed that these artifacts held the key to resurrecting Vecna or, at the very least, unleashed a portion of his power. This quest often put them at odds with adventurers and other factions who sought to keep the artifacts hidden or destroy them to prevent Vecna's return. Throughout the centuries, the cult of Vecna slowly expanded its influence, weaving its members into the fabric of societies across the land. They infiltrated political circles, academic institutions, and even other religious organizations, spreading Vecna's doctrine subtly and gaining allies and converts to their cause. The cult was known for its dark rituals, which often involved necromancy and blood magic. These rituals were not only acts of devotion, but also methods to extend their magical prowess and control over the dead and the undead. The darker the ritual, the closer they believed that they were to mimicking Vecna's own powers. An important artifact that the cult sought to recover and protect was the Book of Vile Darkness, a tome that was as much a part of Vecna's legacy as his hand and his eye. This book contained spells, rituals, and dark knowledge that Vecna had compiled over his lifetime. For the cult, possessing the book was akin to holding a part of Vecna's essence. As the cult's influence grew, so did the attention it drew from those who opposed dark magic and tyranny. Many heroes and paladins sought to dismantle the cult's networks and disrupt their plans. These confrontations often led to violent clashes, with the cult defending their sanctuaries and relics with fanatic zeal. The cult of Vecna, despite the continuous efforts to eradicate it, remained a persistent threat in the world. Their operations, though often curtailed, never ceased entirely. They waited for the alignment of the cosmic events or the discovery of a lost artifact that could herald the return of Vecna. Their vigil was not just a testament to their devotion, but also a warning to the world that some legacies were too dark to fully extinguish. Chapter 9: The Whispered Secrets. As centuries passed, the cult of Vecna, once thought to be dwindling, found new vigor. The discovery of the Book of Vile Darkness. The tome, dense with Vecna's insights into necromancy and forbidden spells, became a sacred object within the cult. Its recovery inspired a renewed dedication to Vecna's doctrines. With the Book of Vile Darkness in their possession, the cult began disseminating Vecna's teachings more broadly amongst their ranks. Secret schools and libraries were established, hidden from the eyes of the world, where initiates were taught the dark arts as Vecna had envisioned them. This period saw a significant increase in the numbers of necromancers and dark wizards whose powers were directly influenced by Vecna's legacy. The cult's operations became more secretive and sophisticated. They developed a network of spies and informants that rivaled the intelligence agencies of many kingdoms. This network was not only used to protect their activities, but also to manipulate political and economic events to their advantage, paving the way for a societal structure that could one day welcome Vecna's return. The resurgence of the cult and the spread of Vecna's dark magic did not go unnoticed by the forces of good. A silent war began, fought in the shadows between the cult's agents and those of various paladin orders and magical guilds dedicated to preventing the rise of dark powers. This conflict, while rarely erupting into open warfare, was deadly and constant, marked by assassinations, curses, and counterspells. Apart from the Book of Vile Darkness, other artifacts related to Vecna began to surface: amulets, rings, and lesser relics that had been scattered across the land. Each discovery sparked a mini conflict as various groups attempted to claim or destroy these items. The cult's relentless pursuit of these artifacts often led them to direct conflict with adventurers and treasure hunters. During this era, several prophecies came to light, texts that had been hidden or misunderstood for ages, which spoke of Vecna's return and the circumstances surrounding it. These prophecies became a roadmap for the cult, guiding their actions and strategies. Each celestial event or significant magical phenomenon was scrutinized for its potential to be the harbinger of Vecna's return. As the cult wove its influence deeper into the fabric of society, the overall perception of magic began to shift subtly. Areas under their covert control often saw a normalization of dark practices, with the public becoming desensitized to the moral ambiguities of using necromancy and other forbidden arts in everyday life. The Withered Secrets era reinforced the cult of Vecna's role as a major clandestine force in the world. Their activities, shrouded in mystery and imbued with the legacy of one of the most powerful necromancers ever known, hinted at the depth of Vecna's continued impact in the world. This period set the stage for further developments in the saga, showcasing the persistence of evil and the ongoing efforts of the righteous to combat it. Chapter 10: The Ascension to Godhood. As the centuries wore on, the cult of Vecna's ceaseless efforts and the alignments of the celestial and magical energies culminated in a rare cosmic event. This event, prophesied in ancient texts as the Night of Shadows, created the perfect conditions for Vecna's ascension. During this dark convergence, the barriers between the mortal world and the divine realms thinned, provided Vecna's followers with the opportunity that they had been preparing for. In a hidden sanctum deep within the ruins of Vecna's original citadel, the highest echelons of the cult gathered to perform the ritual of ascension. This elaborate ritual combined the powers of the recovered artifacts, the dark magic from the Book of Vile Darkness, and the life force from countless sacrifices. The cult's intent was to open a gateway to the divine realms and elevate Vecna to godhood. As the ritual reached its climax, the air thick with arcane energy and the cries of the sacrificed, Vecna's spirit, long diffused and lingering, coalesced in a circular, powerful entity. This newly found divine being was both the Vecna of old and something new entirely, a god of secrets and necromancy, his form both terrifying and awe-inspiring. His first acts of divine power were to obliterate his most ardent opponents and to establish his domain in the realms of the dead. Vecna's ascension sent shockwaves through the celestial hierarchies. Deities of knowledge, death, and magic found their domains challenged by Vecna's arrival. Some sought to ally with him, recognizing his power and hoping to contain it with their established orders. Others opposed him outright, leading to celestial conflicts that echoed back to the mortal realms, manifesting as magical anomalies and conflicts amongst their followers. With Vecna's ascension, the cult of Vecna was no longer a mere secretive society, but a major political force. Temples were built openly, and Vecna's worship spread across the land, particularly in regions overwhelmed by the shadows of death and secrecy. His followers included not only necromancers, but outcasts and also rulers and scholars, anyone drawn to the power of secrets and the promise of eternal life. In the divine realms, Vecna carved out his domain, a vast shadowy realm where the souls of the dead came bearing secrets from their lives. This realm, known as the Citadel of Unseen Spectres, became a place of both fear and pilgrimage for those devoted to Vecna. It was said that within its walls, secrets of the past, present, and future could be uncovered for a price. Back in the mortal world, Vecna's rise to godhood reordered societal and magical norms. His teachings and doctrines influenced laws and ethics, especially concerning death and the afterlife. Necromancy, once feared and reviled, gained a new layer of religious sanctity, complicating moral debates across various cultures. As a deity, Vecna continued to embody the principles of secrecy and control. His divine gaze could pierce through any deception, making him both a protector against lies and a master of them. His followers believed that Vecna watched over them from beyond, guiding their actions with his unseen hand. The ascension of Vecna to godhood marked a pivotal moment in the cosmic balance, altering the course of the divine and mortal histories alike. Chapter 11: Vecna's Legacy. As we move to the present day, nearly a millennium after Vecna's ascension to godhood, his influence remains pervasive and profound. His legacy is woven into the fabric of the multiverse, impacting cultures, magics, and the very understanding of power and secrecy. Vecna, now a deity entrenched in the pantheon, continues to be a figure of worship, fear, and fascination. Vecna's insights and innovations in necromancy and the darker arts have profoundly shaped the study and application of magic. His doctrines are studied in secret societies and forbidden sections of arcane libraries, offering power that is tempting and terrifying. This has led to the periodic resurgence in the practice of the dark arts, each weave echoing Vecna's endless quest for power and knowledge. The cult of Vecna, now an established religious force, operates both in the shadows and in the open, depending on the region. In some places, it is a major religion, with temples that rival those of other gods in splendor and influence. In others, it remains underground, engaged in covert activities to further the dark ambitions of its deity. The hand and eye of Vecna, along with other lesser relics, continues to be the object of immense power and obsession. Adventurers and scholars alike seek them, drawn by their legendary power and the mysteries they hold. These artifacts occasionally resurface, sparking quests, conflicts, and the tales to add to Vecna's mythos. Vecna's legacy is not unchallenged. Heroes across the ages have risen up to combat the influence of his dark magic and the spread of his cult. These individuals, often armed with holy artifacts, ancient knowledge, or a sheer heroic will, face off against Vecna's followers in a never-ending battle between light and darkness. Among the deities, Vecna is both a player and a pawn in the cosmic game of power. His relationship with the other gods are complex, marked by alliances, rivalries, and betrayals. His quest for secrets and control make him a key figure in the divine intrigues and the balancing power amongst the gods. Vecna's story and the symbols associated with him, such as his missing eye and his hand, have permeated various cultures, influencing art, literature, and folklore. He embodies the archetype of the seeker of forbidden knowledge, a cautionary tale about the price of ambition, and the dangers of delving too deeply into the dark corners of magic and the human soul. In many realms, laws have been shaped by the threats that Vecna legacy possesses. Legislations concerning necromancy, the handling of ancient artifacts, and the governance of magical research often carry the imprint of his dark legacy, aiming at preventing the rise of another power akin to his. These laws are a testament to the lasting impacts of his reign and the fear that his return, whether literal or ideological, continue to invoke. Vecna's role as the god of secrets makes him a patron to spies, information brokers, and conspirators. This dual aspect as both overseer and deceiver makes him a complex figure in the pantheon, serving as a deity who is called upon in matters of confidentiality, espionage, and the uncovering of truth. His followers include not only those who worship him out of fear or desire for power, but also those who seek the protection of their secrets. Academically, Vecna's techniques and historical impacts are subjects of intense study within certain scholarly circles. These studies are often controversial, balancing on the edge of moral ethics and the pursuit of arcane knowledge. Universities and arcane institutions have divisions dedicated to understanding his magic, ensuring that while his darker methods are contained, The knowledge derived from them benefits magical defenses and strategies. As a deity, Vecna continues to watch from beyond. His influence felt whenever secrets unfold or darkness creeps at the edges of society. His eternal vigil ensures that his presence is never fully diminished, both as a guardian against and a wielder of the darkest magics. Vecna's legacy is a complex tapestry of fear, power, and eternal vigilance. His journey from mortal to deity encapsulates the eternal struggle between the limits of power and the bounds of morality. As we reflect on his impact, we see not just a tale of ascension, but a cautious narrative that challenges heroes, influences rulers, and shapes the very fabric of the multiverse. Vecna remains a figure of intrigue and terror, a reminder of what lies in the shadows of great power. This tale of Vecna, from his humble beginnings to his godly dominion, serves as a profound lesson and an enduring story in the annals of history and myth. It reminds us that the past, no matter how deeply buried, always has a way of resurfacing, and the legends, like secrets, have a power all of their own. Vecna's story is far from over. It is a narrative that continues to evolve and inspire as long as there are secrets to keep and powers to uncover.